to the God Conclusion. I'm your host, John Leonard. Our guest is Tony Harlan. Tony has been a visitor to the page for a little while, and he sent me a very interesting message, which I'm going to take a brief moment to say anyone can do this. You can send me a private message. If you've got something interesting that you want to talk about, then we could very well have you as a guest on the podcast, as Tony's ended up being today. But don't be afraid to reach out. Tony reached out and said that he had been a devil worshiper and was in a coma and had visions or experiences in hell. And if listeners might remember that I spoke with Matthew Botsford, who was the quintessential innocent bystander. He was shot in the back of the head. This is for you, Tony. He was shot in the back of the head while he was standing on the curb waiting for a taxi. And he was dead before he hit the ground. I mean, he was so far gone. They wanted to donate his organs, So he's got a lot of data to support his experience, and I didn't understand why somebody who was an innocent bystander would go to hell. I mean, as someone who claims the devil, have worshiped the devil, and I guess my first question to you is this: what does worshiping the devil mean to you? I've had some people
Um,
that have claimed that they're Satanists that did not said Satan is not a real or entity.
I've heard that.
Satan,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
did you worship an
Non-the
entity?
non-theistic Satanist. No, I wasn't a part of the LaVeyan, I guess you would call it, Satanism.
Yes, I'm very familiar with
Anton
that.
LaVey.
Yes.
Okay, so I wasn't. I mean, of course, read it, but I wasn't really into it. I was more of a theistic Satanist, where I legit, honestly worship the devil. I did rituals. I was in the woods. I was doing, all these rituals that I found like in books and things like that. So like I wasn't the anarchist type, Satanist where, it's just more of a clash against Christianity. It was an actual theistic plan in my respects. I never hated Christianity. I just chose that, which was a tremendous mistake. An absolute
I
tremendous mistake.
Well, thank God that you're here to talk with us today and tell us your story because I'm afraid that we're in the last days. I think time is getting shorter every day. We're seeing more and more depravity
Yes.
accepted as normal behavior. And I think that your voice is more important than ever because you have an experience to talk about that it
I
is
mean,
is real to you.
it's so real. I mean, I don't know. John, you could take one look at me because I live in a rural town, right? Take one look at me. I can turn my face to the side, camera facing. I got an inverted cross right over here. I got, I don't, you probably can't see it, but going across the jawline up and forward is a pitchfork. That's how deep I am. I look the part. People look outside, they see me. I look the part to them. Obviously, that's not something I am anymore. Thank God, God. But and that's it's only by His grace that something has changed, and I'm not damned forever. My goodness, John, I this story that I have, like from the coma, I don't even know if we can say it all because it's disgusting and it's
Well, first of all,
depressing.
how did you come to find yourself in a coma? What happened what was the sequence of steps that caused you to be in this coma?
Rampant drug abuse and then pneumonia. Yep.
Was it medically induced or was it just
No,
that you slipped into a coma?
I slipped into
Ok
a coma for 2
okay,
months.
so you were in this state for 2 months?
Yeah, yeah,
For
lost all muscle
2
structure.
wow.
Yeah, I lost all muscle structure. I couldn't when I did wake up, I did try to get up to go to the restroom because I felt it, and that was the first sensation I had of being back to normal, like back alive. And then I realized I didn't have any muscles, so my legs just failed. Boom, done. I fell down and broke my ribs
Oh my.
on the what do you call it?
Uh,
The
the
IV
hospital
tree.
yeah,
You
yeah.
So yeah, so I broke my ribs on that because I thought I could get up and walk because you don't have a concept of
Yeah.
time when you're there. You don't. You really don't. And then we can get into that in a little bit. But time is not a concept at all when you're in a coma.
Now, are there any medical records? I don't know that I would call a coma. It's kind of a state in between life and death, but I don't know if it would be classified by the experts as a quote unquote near death experience.
Experience. Fair enough.
Um,
I did have the crash cart. They had to revive me several times, so I did
okay,
go
that
clinic.
that that would well that would qualify if they're having to resuscitate you, then you're not
Yeah,
in a
they did have to use the crash cart several times on me. I think four because I kept going code blue. So I would that would I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I would go.
I think we're splitting hairs. The
Yeah,
important
maybe.
part is your story. And so, because I want to get into some of the details, just for the record, these podcasts are not intended for children. So you are free to describe your experience as graphically as you would like. I mean,
I'll try to keep it as clean as possible because it honestly it offends me. So, but I'll go through it in all the gory details as best I can.
sure.
All right. So, how do you want me to start this, John? From the beginning, or
Whatever
y-
you're kind of the captain of the boat here in a manner of speaking. You're the one with the story and I want to hear it. And
okay?
however you want to tell it, however you're most comfortable in telling it. If you want to jump in the middle, you want to, or you want to start at the beginning, I don't know what's going to be the best way for you to tell me the story. I just want to hear it.
I think because of the way you started it, and I agree that that was the best way. Is I was this is who I was, who I used to be before that coma. I was a oblivious devil worshiper. I really was. And that sounds like such a corny term nowadays. Devil worshiper. I literally did that. That was my deal. I was also a gangbanger. I was also a drug dealer and also quite an adept drug user, unfortunately. So all of these things, I was a very contemptible person. I was very not happy with life. I was very angry all the time, a very hateful person. And this is my main message. I don't care if anything else gets out there. Do not ever freaking die with hate in your heart. Just let it go. Forgive. Don't worry about nothing. Let it go. If you die with hate in your heart, that you got a problem. That's my message. The ultimate message, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm not perfect, obviously. So yeah, I went in. I had sepsis, right? So my blood was poisoned. This was from years of not taking care of myself, and a pneumonia struck. So My lungs were filled with something or other and went into a coma. I'm not sure if it was medically induced or if it was just slept into it. Bottom line is, I called my girlfriend. I said, "Listen, they said I'm septic and it might be serious." But to me, I was kind
That's
of
a bit of an understatement, my friend.
well, to me it wasn't because like I didn't care. I'm ex-military. Nothing ever bothers me. So I was like, so to me it was more like an attention getter. Like, hey, honey, this looks like it might be serious. So again, I'm just being like a very selfish kind of loser in that respect. So I'm like, yeah, it might be serious, but it turns out it was. And so I jumped in. And this is where it gets really bizarre. Now, John, I don't know, you seem to be way more adept and competent and about these things. So that's why I really came to you, because not to tell my story, but to get your advice, because I don't know if it's real. I don't know if it was a dream, but I swear to God, well, I can't swear to God. I'm telling you, I lived a different lifetime, an entire lifetime in that 2 months, an entire lifetime as a different human being. And it was absolute hell. It was. I guess I got to start at the beginning. So I don't know how the format of your show works or how to take breaks, this, that, and the other.
Yeah, you just talk, and I
Okay.
listen, and I've got this tool that I
You
use
can do some
after we're
editing.
done. I can do
Okay.
some editing, so all the ums and the ahs get cut out, and
Okay.
so, I
Okay.
mean, don't worry about it.
I didn't want to break up, however you have your show done. I've never done a podcast
I
in my
want you to
life.
relax. I want you I mean, I don't,
Okay.
normally advocate, but, I see the cigarette in your hand, go ahead, I mean, be comfortable.
Okay. So in the coma. All right. So this is day one of after, or not afterlife, other life. So I'm walking through this, what appears to be a carnival of sorts, which normally I would like. Haunted houses, this, that, and the other. Normally I would like. So we get in there, right? And so something happens. We get into this one spot and they do the same thing that they did at a church I went to. Okay. So there's this church in West Palm Beach that did this like horror show. They always did this, I don't know, like, it's like a haunted house, but they scare the living daylights out of you. And
I think I might have heard of this place. The
yeah.
the church
So
that
what
does
they
the haunted house that has this real life horrors and, so
Yeah, it's scary. It's scarier than any other haunted houses I've ever been in. Absolutely. And they did this thing, and I don't know if it like triggered something in my head, which led to this coma dream slash hellscape. But they did this thing where I got put in with the nearest person next to me into a coffin, a stand up coffin. And so they turned it, and then they turned it, and you're in hell. That's at the church, right? So at the church, they did that to me. And because I went to the church nominally, not very often, I just did it to please my girlfriend's father. So the guy in the devil costume starts yelling and saying my name over and over again. So I don't know if that had an effect or what this was in my coma state, but that's something that happened in that world. So I got stuck with the closest person next to me. This person happened to be female, but she wasn't placed in the coffin standing up. She was put hands down. So we went through this thing. Now this is where it gets really kind of ick graphic. They did something that like shot with a shotgun, or I don't know. Something devastating happened to her nether regions, and they would take my hand, and we were stuffed. Oh, and that's what I forgot. We were being drowned. The water was filling up. We were drowning, And as I'm in the water just trying to flail around, they're taking my hand and they're putting it in that that very mutilated spot, which was, oh my gosh, that I hate saying it. I hate talking about that. It's so like it, man. It, that one was that's a hard one to take. So time goes on in this coma dream. I'm a different person. I'm living a good life. I'm living a happy life, right? Something I never had before. I had a wife, I had children. It was amazing. Wife and children is the absolute dream. And so something really terrible happens. I can't remember quite what, but my wife and children are gone. They're dead. They killed them. And this gentleman, he's like I don't know, very good looking man in armor and very tough. And he keeps telling me, he's like, let go, just let go. And I'm like, I can't let go. Like, you killed my wife and family. I can't let go. I'm going to fight you. He's like, no, don't. Just let go. Be with us. Be with us. It's going to be all right. But my anger would not allow that. So I continued to fight. We fought, I think, spanning city blocks, it felt like, destroying things. Like, it was almost like superhero level stuff. But it wasn't me being that strong. I did find out that there was a young, I'm not sure if it was a lady or a young man, because it was the human was young. So I couldn't tell exactly what it might be.
Yeah, are you
So,
talking about the person in the coffin with you?
no, a brand new person. A
Oh,
brand new person showed up, this very powerful person, but it looked like a child. I couldn't tell the sex because sometimes children, they're not that differentiated. Young child appeared to be, I don't know, Indian descent to me. Like, that's what I thought. Indian, like as from India. That's what they looked like with armor, really great armor. And we were both behind this bulwark of like trying to take cover. I drop down, she drops down next to neck, or she or he, I don't know, next to me, and looks at me and is very tired, and as tired as I am, if not worse. And we decide we're gonna keep the fight up. So we both get back up, we both run. This guy is telling me to give up, just let go. Has to fight. Now he's on the defensive because I have somebody else next to me that can help me. Even though it's a child, it's way stronger than me. That was my experience. Eventually, I did obviously keep holding on, but I lived that whole life. I woke up, John, and I asked, my aunt was there, and I hadn't acclimated myself to who I actually was in real life. So I was trying to ask my aunt, where's my wife and kids? Which is a silly question. Obviously, I have none. And it's also a question I couldn't have asked because I have a tracheotomy. And even I thought I could speak, but I couldn't because I had a hole in my throat. So when I did that, now this is just me this isn't part of the near death thing. This is just human trauma. Is like when you wake up and you think you're speaking and you can't. And then all of a sudden I thought like, oh my gosh, I'm actually dead. Like they can't hear me. I'm not really here. I'm a dead corpse in this fucking, excuse me, it's part of my language. I'm a dead corpse in my bed. And that's what I thought. That's what I thought because I couldn't speak because I didn't understand trach, the tracheotomy. So that's how it goes, John. It's kind of all I have. Now, what would you think about these things? And I would really like to hear what you have to say because I really respect your opinion and I love your page. And please give me some thoughts if you would.
well, yes, I'd love to help if I can, and but I'm afraid that I've got questions first
Yeah, go
before
for it.
I can, you know, potentially offer any answers.
Absolutely.
The you didn't recognize any of the individuals in this dream or experience,
No.
did you?
No. No. Nobody from my life was in this dream or experience.
I'm not gonna get bogged down trying to analyze the significance of having someone in the coffin with you and having that person injured severely, because the family that you imagined having, the wife and the
Mhm.
child,
Yes.
those were not in the coffin with you. Those were someone that you saw having in your life. And then you had some sensation that they had been killed,
Yes.
and
But
by this person wearing armor.
yes, a very handsome individual who just he said, you have nothing left. I am all you have. So give up. Just let go." And to me, I sort of took it as an
What is your feeling about this individual that was, because you were fighting him, but you're describing him as a beautiful,
I thought it was demonic.
you thought he was demonic.
I still do. Yes, 100%. That's what I feel. I mean, John, you can tell me you're way more versed than I am. You can say if I'm being foolish, but I felt that it was a demonic
No, I'm definitely
presence.
not going to tell you that you're being foolish, because you definitely had a real experience. Sepsis is a extremely serious situation. It usually results in death. Usually. And you had pneumonia, which also can cause death. So you had the double whammy at the same time. And the fact that you're able to be here talking to with me today is a testimony or a testament to, I I'm tempted to say divine intervention, because you seem to have come to your senses. Now, before this experience, you were still a devil worshiper at the time that you went into the hospital.
When I
Is
went into
that,
the hospital, not as much, but yes, I still was
you had
quite
not
the
had an epiphany that God exists and God is real, and
no, I was quite
that's a better path to follow,
I
or any
was
of that
quite
sort of thing.
I was quite the heathen.
Um,
Absolutely. I was
uh,
really a bad seed.
well, all right. Here's what is kind of in my mind to say to you right off the bat. And I've heard a lot of near death experience accounts, and
Right.
the majority of them tend to be the positive experience. But I have heard more than one near death experience account, which where the person experienced hell or claimed to. And I believe that those experiences are real. They are not physical. It's, it's maybe psychological, but that
I
gets
th-
into a tricky situation,
yeah.
because if you're in a state between life and
My
death, especially, there's one near death experience story that I love telling, and that's a girl named Michaela Roser. Now, she had a positive near death experience, but she had corroborated veridical data information in
wow.
her account. She was so severely injured in a car accident that her brain twisted inside of her skull, and I mean, so far gone, they were able to stick a tube down her throat without any anesthesia, and she was in very serious condition. They took her into emergency surgery, and while she was in surgery, her grandparents and her parents, both her maternal and paternal grandmother, were in with her parents in the hospital cafeteria, not anywhere near the operating theater.
Wow.
And while the parents are in there, the father says, "The stress is getting to me. I'm going to smoke a cigarette, and the maternal and the paternal grandparents but both said we're stressed out, we're gonna go have a cigarette too. And when Michaela woke up from her coma several weeks later, she said she was laughing because she said, no, y'all would never smoke a cigarette. What are you doing? And so to her it was a great comedy thing, but to her mother it was astonishing proof that she had
Right.
somehow been outside of her body and in another
Wow.
physical location while that surgery was going on.
Now that's neat because you always hear about the ones like they stare at themselves from over the bed and such, but to be in another location, that's incredible. That's awesome. That's the first time I've ever heard that. It's usually inside the operating room is where a lot of people have
Right,
that
right. Yeah, I
out
mean,
of
yeah, you
body
still have
experience.
exactly. And that's what happened in the case of Pam Reynolds. But in the case of Pam Reynolds, she had the tape over her eyes and the earplugs.
Oh
So
my
she should
God.
not been able to hear
Yeah.
or see anything. But not only did she hear this conversation and was able to later recount it, and that conversation was part of her medical records because it was happening during her surgery. So they had a literal physical record that this statement had been made. And then later she comes out of surgery and recovers to the point where she's able to say to the people, I
That's
heard you say this,
a
and they
shame.
could verify it.
It's
So
very
I still, there's the person who introduced me to the term corroborated veridical NDE information is a guy named Dr. Gary Habermas. And I'm
wow.
actually pretty excited. I got a call back from them. I want to speak with him because I heard him recently say that Pam Reynolds is not the best recorded account, and that I didn't hear everything that he said. It was something to the effect of it wasn't the best account that's available, that there are other really good accounts. And he may or may not have been saying that there was some issue with her account. But like I said, I've always seen it as the gold standard. But I'm off.
I've
I'm off
heard
on a. Go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say I've heard of some people putting blocks of letters on top of like the medical refrigerator or something like that, and just to
Right.
see if
That's a
if
guy
they're
named
lifted up.
That's a guy named Dr. Sam Parnia
Oh,
who's
okay.
doing experiments over. I think he's part of this organization called IANS, the International Association for Near Death Study.
Wow.
And so he's done a number of experiments, but to me, experiments are not the same thing as getting testimony from someone who claims to have had an experience and has some documentation to validate that experience. And I'm going to tell you, to me, even if the near death experience could somehow be falsified by the atheist community, my question to them would be, why on earth would you want to do that?
Yes.
Because
And
because they cannot do a scientific study that documents whether or not the experience that you've described of being in hell or the experiences that others have described of going to heaven, they can't prove that. But what they can prove is that the set of people who have had this experience or had experiences in near death accounts, whether positive or negative, they change profoundly after the experience.
I
They donate to
yes,
charity, they participate in hospice, their
right.
lives change. And you're telling me your life has changed
It's
by
so
this.
changed. It's so changed, John. Listen, the loss, the grief. I felt pain that like I have no right to feel. Okay, I never had children or a wife before. I had no right to feel that pain, but I did. I felt it, and it was so deep and disturbing and dark. And this is why I call him demonic because it's just this handsome fellow offering you like release. I can help you. Let go. To me, I have enough understanding. As even as a devil worshiper, I studied enough of the Bible, so I knew like that this is a demonic force. To me, that's what it was. People can call it a nightmare, and that's fine. It might have been, but it changed me fundamentally.
I think I know what let go means. Let go
How do you?
means die.
Yeah,
Let
that's
go
what I thought.
let go means give up.
Yeah, you know when they call them fighters,
So you're
so
right. That was a demonic presence in your dream or in your
just
experience. I don't want to
let go.
call it a dream necessarily because I
It
don't know
could have
what it
been.
is.
It could have been, or it could. But to me, it wasn't a dream. It was a warning. It was a straight shot warning, and a temptation. To me, that's what it was. I never felt a pain like that in my whole life. I woke up sobbing, crying, tears rolling down my face, but I couldn't vocalize anything because I had this freaking scar right here. I couldn't do anything about it. And th- for months after that, I couldn't get back to normal because I just woke up from an entire lifetime of nonsense and terror. And it changed me fundamentally. I mean, like you said just a second ago, I donate to churches. I go volunteering, even though I'm not a very pious person as far as like going to church. I will help out my church. I will volunteer, things like that. It changed everything about me. I'm a husband now. I do have a son now, and it's magical. It's so amazing what family can do for you. It's and a belief in God. It's silly to not know that he's there. It's so silly to me now that like it doesn't make sense. Like I was such a fool growing up and being so hateful. I was a fool, absolute fool.
One of the things I probably should have warned you before we got into this call is, I do not claim to have any sort of professional wisdom or
Oh,
professional
that's fine.
training in how to counsel people and that sort of thing. And I'll be honest with you, I had been to your Facebook page when you had sent me the message and saw the tattoos on your face and kind of knew that it had been a serious thing with you,
Huh. Yeah, I was.
the Satan worship and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I, before we started speaking,
Hmm.
I had it in my mind that I was going to suggest that you try to have those tattoos removed. And I'm going now. Hear me out.
I'm hearing you.
I'm
Go for it.
I'm going to say now they serve you better to deliver the message that you have to
That's. I
it
agree.
is 10 times more powerful
I
coming
agree.
from you because all of the people on my page that the atheists that don't believe that God or Satan exists, I think you got a pretty good argument that
I was one of them. I was one of those staunch people.
but you weren't
Stronger than
because
most.
you weren't an atheist really though. You were a true
No, no.
Satanist. You
I was a
really
true Satanist.
you
Yep.
truly worshipped the devil.
Yeah,
And
I liked hatred. I liked debauchery. I nothing more than the world to burn.
I'm
That's where I
glad that you
was.
I'm glad you said that too because that reminded me when I had my conversion experience. And I was a software developer. I was never an atheist or anything like that, but I was an agnostic, and I would now describe myself as an apathetic agnostic because I didn't really care whether God
Yeah,
existed. It wasn't important to me.
right.
And so then I had this, I didn't want to go through the motions and pretend to believe something that I didn't want to feel like I was just hedging my bets, trying to keep from going to hell in the off remote chance it might exist. So I said, you know, I remembered from my confirmation class when I did go to church on a regular basis, Matthew 7:7 which says, "Ask and you will receive, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you." And
Okay.
then Revelation 3:20, which is, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock, and if you open the door, I will come in and eat with you and you with me." And I wanted to know, I really wanted to know. And so I opened up my heart, and now I joke about it and I say, you need to be careful of what you ask for because you
Mhm.
just might get it. And what happened to me that night, this is the point I wanted to make here in telling you this story briefly,
Okay.
was the fundamental change that happened from day one. I didn't become a writer for years. I didn't become whatever I am, whatever you want to call me as the God conclusion. I didn't come
Yeah.
that for more than a decades after this happened. But the
Nice.
very next day, when I woke up and I knew God existed, I had lost my ability to hate other people. I can get really disgusted by some of the things that people will say and do, but I don't have the feelings toward them that I used to have when I wasn't a believer. You okay?
Yeah, yeah, it's my neuropathy. I'm diabetic, so like my feet sometimes hurt a lot. I do apologize for that. Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. I mean, I grew up the way I did, a lot of problems. Went through the military, you know, got my fair share of PTSD, came back home, and still just full of darkness. And again, and a lot of it was self-serving too. It wasn't just like, oh, poor me. It was a lot of it self-serving. It's like, I just don't care if there is a God. He can go do whatever, and because I'm full of hate and I don't like anything. But left me so empty, and I think that's probably why I experienced what I did. Now this could have been a psychological thing. Near death experiences are, largely unproven, so I don't know if I had one or not. It is what it is. But I know what I felt. To me it was real, so it's always going to be real, and I feel like I was fighting a very real fight. I felt like I was feeling like
Well,
that fight really changed who I am fundamentally, and I
well,
think that's a good thing.
if I may interrupt for a second.
Certainly.
I've heard several near death experience accounts where the person claimed or said that they've experienced hell. There's Matthew Botsford, there's a guy named Howard Storm, and there's you, and there's a few others that I've heard. And the one common denominator in all of those accounts is none of the people that claim to have experienced hell would describe themselves as have been being a Christian at the time that they had the experience.
No.
And what I would note is in the case of Matthew Botsford, he described a hell where he was confined constantly, and these demons were ripping the flesh off his body. And as soon as it was ripped off, it would grow back and they could do it again. I mean, he had some really horrible
Yeah.
experiences to describe. Howard Storm, he had a near death experience over in France when he was taking this. Well, that's irrelevant why he was there or what he was doing. The
Right.
point is, he claimed he was an atheist and he claimed to have experienced hell, and it was abject misery, but it wasn't the experience that you had. And I think it's because of this. I think hell is
Yeah.
Satan or
Yeah.
whatever is reaching into our minds
Your darkest fears.
and finding your darkest fears and
Yeah.
preying on them. And that was your darkest fear, was losing this family that you had yet to have. You
Yeah.
have it now, but
I
you
still
had
have
the
that creature. Well, I call him a creature, but that man, the golden hair maniac that did this to me. Still, I still see him in dreams. He still threatens me. He says he's gonna take it all away. He's gonna. You finally found your. You found your footing. You found your. You found yourself. You. Now I'm going to take this from you. It's coming. But you know what? It's empty. It's empty threats to me now. I don't. I have a protection. I have a protection from it, and that's to me God, and my belief and my faith. It's not the. I'm not the most pious person, but I do believe that I'm being protected now from this thing, whatever. And again, who am I to say? It could be just a psychological thing. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I do. I in my heart, I do feel God is protecting me from this demonic presence. That's what my heart tells me. People might say otherwise, but that's on them. But I really do feel that way.
My wife has a very interesting way of looking at things, and one expression that she's had over the years is that this is not our true reality.
Yeah,
That
I
we come to earth and it's like our souls are going off to college for a few years. We're here to learn something, and then we take back from that experience into the eternal
I like
whatever
that.
that may be. And so you should have comfort in knowing that no matter what happens in this world, you know there's something beyond this, or you've had the experience of it.
I
So even though I can't look at what you say and say, you know, I that is documented scientific evidence that proves the afterlife is real, proves that heaven exists, but I can listen to you talk and believe what you're telling me, that you believe it. And I know that I've never experienced hell, and I use Carl Jung all the time in this
yeah.
reference. I can't say that your experience is not real just because I didn't have the same experience. That is hubris to have that attitude of, well, if I didn't have the experience, it can't be real. That's
I
ridiculous.
meet very few people that would say something like that. Usually they're either like you're full of garbage or whatever. Typically no that's a very humble way to go about it. But yeah, again, like I said, it's definitely not proof that there's an afterlife. It's not proof that I actually saw hell. But I know what I experienced and I know what it did to me. I know what it did to me. And that's the biggest thing because I want people to know that. And I'm not a huge churchgoer. Maybe you guys, you can take a couple snippets of this little interview here and maybe somebody will identify with it. But man, it changed me. It changed me from, you can tell, like the way I look, it changed me. And
Well,
I'm
I'm
not
not a
that guy no more. And there's a very specific reason why I'm not that guy anymore. I believe in God. That's bottom line. It changed me. It was real, at least to me. And so hopefully somebody will maybe see something about it and change their ways because you don't want to go out like that. Not like me.
I'm not a prophet, and I'm not a psychic. I'm not a preacher. I'm a guy that wrote a book. But when I hear what you are saying, I'm also not a promoter or anything of that nature. But when I hear what you are saying, I'm hearing a message that needs to be heard by the world, by especially by the believing world that is under such assault. They need to have this confirmation that what we've been struggling for, what we've been struggling against, has all been real. And your testimony is powerful, my friend.
It's, again, I couldn't tell you if it's real or not real. It's real to me. And
Oh, it's absolutely real
God
that you
changed.
nearly died It's
Yeah, well, that,
absolutely
yeah,
real that you had sepsis. It's absolutely real that you had pneumonia. And it's absolutely real that you recovered and are here to talk with me today. So, you know, why is that? And I have to believe that God had you have that experience for a reason. So
I
that
believe so.
so with
I needed
Matthew
that. I
with
needed what happened.
with Matthew Botsford, I love him. I mean, but there's a criticism that the atheist can make against him. Sure, he's got a bullet in his head and he's permanently or he's partially paralyzed with permanent disabilities, but he wrote a book, so he's making money off of his testimony.
Right.
And so they will downplay it of, yeah, but he wrote a book. All
Yeah,
you're doing
that's
is
what they do.
you're telling a story. You're telling your story.
Yeah,
And
I'm not interested in books or none of that. I'm just, if somebody gets something from it, God bless you. I hope the best for you.
well, they gotta hear.
I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy that's gonna make some money off this. I'm just not. I just want other people to know that this is real. You can look at me. You can look at me. I'm scarred for life. You can look at me. You know. Like I'm not a phony. Like I used to live that life. I used to be that guy. And you don't want to be that guy. You want to change. You please, all you need to do is change and just be, I don't know, just get right. Just get right and know that he's out there. He is, and that's all there is to it. There is nothing more important. Nothing. Put your family first. Put your God first. There you go. That's all there is, and that's the key to a happy life. I'm not floating in money. I'm not, but I'm also not struggling as hard as I was. But
You've
one
been
thing I
blessed.
do, one thing I do have is I have a son that loves me. I have a wife that loves me, and that is paramount to everything. And that's everything that they said in that dream that I couldn't have, and I got it. So they can go whatever to themselves. You know what I mean? Without being a foul mouth human being, th- they can go do whatever because I got it, and they didn't take it from me. So I'm on
when
top.
when I hear you speak, I hear somebody speaking with authenticity, and I'm not trying to. I don't know what I'm trying to do. I've been very moved by your sharing your personal story with me, and I appreciate
It
that.
is. I'm honestly, I am so actually very happy to have gotten this off my chest because I really never had a chance actually to really say this to somebody who would not ridicule me for a belief. That's very rare. And I have my wife and son, but you know, sometimes they, you know how wives and sons can be. They could just like, oh, there goes dad yapping again. But it's nice to actually speak this with somebody else who is like-minded, so to speak. So, and I respect you because I look at your page constantly. And I really enjoy it, and the messages that you get. I kind of really want to read that book as soon as I get the chance. But I do appreciate you so much for just taking time out to speak with me. It's been an actual blessing.
Well, it's been an honor for me to have you on the program, and I mean, do you have any questions for me that you feel like you haven't been answered, or
No, I thought, you gave me a lot of insight that I kind of didn't really think about before I spoke to you. So I'm
well,
very thankful for that. And no, I just, again, I'm thankful that you allowed me to get these things off my chest and talk about it. If you can take a couple snippets of this, shoot it out to somebody that it might help, God, I hope that helps
oh,
somebody somewhere.
I'm putting it on YouTube in pretty much its entirety, so that people can hear what you had to say, and
That
And
is actually very shocking to me that someone would want me on their YouTube channel. Okay, though, I'll take it.
your story is compelling. Now, I will say, I feel like I should say this. I
Sure.
can't tell you how literally real the experience that you had was or not.
Yeah, of
But I
course.
can tell you that I believe with my whole heart that it was a spiritual battle on some plane. It may or may not have been taking place within the confines
Yes.
of your skull, but
Yes.
you were in a real battle.
Yeah. And that's my whole point is it may have been a metaphysical battle or it might have been a just psychological battle. Something was happening that fundamentally blew my mind. Done, gone. The human I was just got destroyed.
But
And
just think of what would have happened if
yeah.
you had done what that demonic influence tried to get you to do
Well,
and
first of
just
all, I'd
let
be dead.
go. You'd be dead and
I'd
you'd
be
be
dead.
in hell. You'd be in hell forever.
For real. And also, like the whole thing is I didn't see hell because I was being punished. I don't believe that. I believe it was a stark warning. It was a very stark and very firm warning. This is what you're getting if you do not quit. If you do not like stop being the way you're being, this is what's next. You're gonna
See,
lose.
you've got a message that I cannot say. You are a modern day Paul. You were Saul on the road to Damascus. You were murdering Christians, if not literally, by your practices in worshiping Satan. And
Basically, yes.
and God grabbed you by the
Y-
shorts
Mm,
and changed you
yo,
around 180 degrees.
he yoked me, man. He just grabbed me and turned me around. He said, "You listen up, sucker." And that's exactly what happened, man. And that's what it was. Even whether it was actually metaphysical, like legit actual demons, or it was just my mind. Something happened. He intervened. He said, "Listen here, sucker. You do this the right way, or you're gonna. This is where you go." So I do believe that happened for a reason. My son wouldn't be alive now. He's the most magical creature I've ever known, ever. Without this happening, he would have never been here. So yeah, I went through abject and total misery and what I believe was hell. But it worked out. It worked out
I don't
because I
even want
fought.
to argue. Yeah, I don't even want to argue about the substance of it. I think that the impact of it speaks for itself.
No, I do have one question for you, John, because I'm not really versed on angels and such. But I did have a question about that child in the dream, the child warrior. Would Do you have any insight as to what that might mean, either psychologically or metaphysically? Because I don't know. I don't know. I kind of got, of
I can speculate, but please
I got,
understand that's what I'm doing here.
of course.
I think that there was an element of symbolism in this vision that you had. I don't like the word dream because
Yeah,
it connotates that there was some false elements to it. I prefer vision because we don't really know what this was. And just the mere fact that it had such a profound impact on you makes me think it was more than just a dream. Okay. So that's the
that's what,
perspective
yeah,
that I'm coming at this from. Now, what the new child might represent is you because you were broken, very broken
very
prior
much
to
so.
this experience, and you were
Yeah,
dying. I mean, that's not a
yes,
figurative thing. You were literally dying. So, what the new child to me represents your opportunity to have this new life that you've got now. That was the choice that you were being presented with of, oh, just take the easy way out, go ahead and just let go and die. Or you have this choice to become a new creation, literally. And the Bible talks about it.
That is something I have never thought of. I appreciate that. That is something to ruminate on for sure.
Well, if you don't mind, it's been over an hour and I don't want to take up too much of your time. And I've never done this before, but do you mind if I say a short prayer to close
Absolutely.
this?
Please do. Yes. Yes, sir.
Dear God, thank you for this man and thank you for his testimony today. It's been a very powerful message that we're able to think about in spite of my dog barking his full head off in the back. But this was a conversation that needed to be had. And I believe that this man has a mission going forward to tell others, to reinforce the believers in churches, to go into churches and stand in front of congregations and talk like he's just talked with me, telling these people this message, because this is something that it's a message that people need and want to hear. They need to hear the truth. Thank you for this and all your many blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for letting me do that. Like I said, I've never done it before. Probably won't ever do it again, but there's always a first time.
I
And
can never refuse a prayer, sir.
well, thank you so much for coming on today and for being so open and willing to share. And if there's anything that, don't hesitate to reach out again and let's keep the lines open and talk.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John. You've been an absolute blessing.
Amen. You too, brother. You have a great day.
You too, bud.
Thank you for listening to the God Conclusion. If you like this episode, please consider subscribing to this channel. Join us again next week as we continue to seek truth. Quid est veritas.